Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing details. This is not quite what it appears to be. Yes, it is a Franck Muller double-sided Rattrapante chronograph, but it's not from the 90s when these were originally produced. This is actually a 2022 model year limited edition of 30 pieces in stainless steel. It's the Franck Muller 30th anniversary double-sided Rattrapante chronograph, and there's more than just Franck Muller going on here, because in the background is Waco of the Rake and Revolution magazines, who's created a new company called Grail Watch that works on collaborative efforts to produce timepieces with monikers along the lines of Grail Watch 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this was a collaboration with Franck Muller, driven by Waco's love of the 1990s double-sided chronos. And I should mention, not all of those featured this dial layout, nor did all of those feature a coaxial split second. So this represents one of the best variations of the original line. This is technically Grail Watch number 2, and I think you're going to find it lives up to its name. So 39 millimeters in diameter in steel. It's 15 millimeters thick as I measure it. From lug tip to lug tip, 47.2 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. And while it's fairly thick, it is also fairly short across the wrist. So I'm going to recommend this for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. You can see on my 16 centimeter wrist, the lugs really don't come that close to the edge. And you could probably see best down the barrel that I've got some clearance on each side. Now, the watch is not thin, but then again, once we start talking about what's inside, you'll realize why it's not thin. That said, it does have a generously sloped bezel, so it'll fit underneath a jacket cuff, if not the tightest of dress shirt sleeves. The strap is high grade, period correct, calfskin with a curved spring bar. It features a monotone stitch, a sheer cut side, calfskin on the bottom to match, no crimping, no gouging, a brand new Franck Muller factory strap, and a characteristic Gadroon-style Franck Muller horseshoe pin buckle. You can see the Franck Muller and Watchland logo on the bottom. The case is simple but strong. You can see there's an overlapping flange on the case back in the bezel that defines the mid-case. The mid-case has a little bit of curvature. It's sort of a pot-bellied looking watch. The lugs you can see project out straight from the case. And then we have a combination of a screw, I guess you would call this a skeuomorph. It's the appearance of something else in a form that is not what it appears to be. So this is actually held in place using spring bars, which you can see, although it appears at first glance like it might be screw fixed. The bezel and the case back are almost mirrors of each other. They're both domed. There's a flange that abuts the sapphire. Here we have pump style pushers and a coaxial split second trigger. Now, there were a couple of different double-sided chronographs, all fundamentally powered by Valjoux 7750 architecture. Some of them were not split second. Some of them were split second, but they featured the trigger down at about 8 o'clock on the dial. This is a recreation of what might have been the most charismatic version of the double-sided split, the one with the coaxial pusher, and also the hours and minutes sort of subsumed to the chronograph. The dial is dominated by the stopwatch function. The hours and minutes sit on a sub-register down at the base. Now, there's a lovely rosette guilloche pattern radiating out from the center, and all of the subdials are sunken with concentric patterns. You can see outboard we have a tachymeter scale, which is used to gauge speed, and because it is a split-second chronograph, we can gauge the waxing or waning interval between two concurrent events, such as two cars around a track. So you can time two events concurrently and then keep track of whether the split is waxing or waning. A couple of different colors here. You can see red, silver, blue, black, handsome and playful. And then we flip it all over and you see why it's called the double-sided chronograph. On the reverse side, as long as the primary chronograph second hand is driving, we have a counterclockwise rotating combination of a pulsation scale and a telemeter. The pulsation scale works basically like this. You start it up, well, you're holding a patient's pulse, and you count the pulses. And when you get to 15 pulses, you stop the chronograph. So if you count 15 and stop the chrono right there, that means the extrapolated rate is 140 beats per minute. Now we also have this telemeter at the center. What this tells you is distance. So this mechanism was born of artillery spotting in war. So you would see the impact, you'd start the chronograph, and then you'd stop it when you heard the impact, and then you would read on the scale how many meters removed you were from the point of impact. So this could help you gauge whether you're getting closer or farther from your target. Now, taking a quick look, you can also see there are concentric scales of silver, white, and black coloration, featuring both concentric patterns, as you can see that concentric grooving, and then a mirror of the dial. We have the rosette at center. So double dial, split second, triple scale. What's inside? Well, it's the Franck Muller 7000, which is based on a unidirectional winding Valjoux 7750 architecture. And while they're saying that they found some new old stock at Franck Muller to make this watch, I'm not totally sure that's true, because the power reserve here is rated at 54 hours, and a real 7750 would be like 42 to 46. So I'm thinking this might be a later version of the 7750, either one of the Valgrange ETA evolutions or the Sellita SW500, which in many variations has over 50 or even over 60 hours of power reserve. All of them are 7750 architectures. I'm just saying I think this might be a later version of the 7750, featuring Franck Muller's original double chronograph and split-second adaptations. And fun fact, Franck Muller had created that split-second architecture on the 7750 back when IWC and Richard Habring were historically thought to be the only ones in the game having made that mechanical leap. Franck was doing it at the same time. Now, there is an extended chronograph seconds pinion that continues through the winding rotor, and then that's the reason why the chronograph seconds hand on the reverse side moves counterclockwise. It's literally the same wheel and an extended pinion that extends to each side. Of course, unidirectional winders, 7750s are very efficient winders. They're 4 hertz beat rate. When you pull the crown out, you can see the underlying architecture retains its stop seconds function, which is really quite cool. And of course, it is a cam and oscillating pinion system. So the cam, in this case, adjusted to be very crisp. I wouldn't know that this wasn't a column wheel if I didn't already know it's a 7750 architecture. One of the cool things about an oscillating pinion lateral clutch is it often engages with 0 jump or stagger. It's a very low play system, which is why you see oscillating pinions on super high-end chronos these days from the likes of Richard Mille and F.P. Journe. It's as beautiful as lateral clutch and as traditional, but it doesn't have the extraneous motion of a regular lateral clutch. It's more like a vertical clutch in its precision. And then all of this is 30 meters water resistant, and it comes with a commemorative edition boxed set. So this, a 30-piece limited edition born of the best version of the historic Franck Muller double chronograph from the 1990s, celebrating 30 years of the Franck Muller manufacture, which was one of the first independents founded in 1992, and also a celebration of Waco's ongoing Grail Watch project, this being Grail Watch number 2. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.